Let the words of my mouth and the meditations from our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. A colleague of mine told me the story this week about a man named Daniel. She said that from the moment he was born, his mom knew that her son was different from her other 3 children. There was nothing visible at first, just that he loved to be held and rarely cried, except when he was alone in the crib and wanted to be held. Daniel was very smart and artistic. He read early, drew with great insight and creativity, but his artwork was never complete, and often his mother would take drawings away from him before he could ruin it by erasing his brilliance because it wasn't good enough. He loved to laugh and loved all animals, especially the birds, and he sang. He loved to sing. It drove his brothers mad how he would sing in the mornings. Daniel never really fit in high school, but then again, who does? He made some lifelong friends, other nerds, who stuck it out with him. He went from high school to art school, and he was on his way to becoming a painter, a gifted painter. If only he could have left his paintings alone. But he always saw one flaw, and he would ruin something beautiful in an effort to quiet his self-criticism. After art school, he returned to his own high school to teach, and he was good at it. His mother was proud, but his depressions, they worsened. He found a wonderful partner, but even he couldn't lift his spirits. He quit his job, and he continued to paint. His mom and his dad, they funded his apartment and his food while he sank further into depression and further away from them. "Won't you tell me what's wrong, honey?" she would often say to him. And he would tell her, "I can't. It's like a dark hole, and I am being sucked down, further and further from you. I can't find the light, Mom." She didn't know really what to do after trying doctors, psychiatrists, residential treatment. Nothing helped. She came over one afternoon to bring him some of her favorite meatloaf. It was his favorite meal. There was a sign on the door to his studio. "Mom, don't come in. Just call 911. And so she did. And they found him beside his art. He was gone. What does a priest do when a distraught mother calls your church and asks if her son could please be buried there? And whether or not Daniel could ever be admitted into heaven after what he did. This was a church that they didn't know because they weren't affiliated. They had just heard wonderful things about it. This week in Bible study, I've had some time between our discussion and this homily to brighten the image of the amazing parent in the parable of the prodigal son. There are so many images to lock onto. The image of an irresponsible young son who does everything wrong. He takes his inheritance and spends it all needlessly until there is nothing left and he is alone, caring for pigs of all things, which was the absolute lowest form of work for a Jew in Jesus' day. Then there is the image of a heartbroken father who lets his son go and spend down his inheritance by selling the land that his own father worked so hard to preserve. Then the image of that same son who realizes that his life with his father was so much better than the life he occupied with splurges and indulgences, and tries to come back home to the security of his father. Then there's the image of the older son. He toiled and persevered on the remaining land and cared daily for his father. And when he found out his brother was feeding pigs, he had a serves him right attitude. The image of that same older son whose raging hot anger at his younger irresponsible brother was ejected from his whole body because his brother was welcomed back with a party and complete forgiveness, with no mention of his own hard work since his brother abandoned them. But the image that radiates and sparkles in me most and brightest is this beautiful scene of the father not caring where his younger son had been, not caring what he had done, because he is overjoyed that his son is coming home. Whatever happened, it's no longer important. It's no longer worth mentioning. All that matters to this father is that his son turns and heads home. The image that is shining larger than all the others from this parable is not of his father waiting for his son to return before him, kneeling and making amends. No. It is of this father who sees his son from far away and starts to run. He runs, and he runs to his son. I imagine his sandals flopping off his feet, his clothes rustling behind him in the flurry. I imagine his arthritic knees hurting and tears streaming down his face. I imagine him locked in love for his son, while others look at him in utter shock because he did not wait for an apology. The boy, he tries to get a word in edgewise. He tries to tell his dad how sorry he was for what he had done. But his father, he's not listening. He finally took the boy by both shoulders and held him and wept in his neck and then looked him in the eye and said, "Tonight we are going to have a party. The biggest party this town has ever seen. I don't care how much it costs. I want everyone to know that I got my boy back. I thought you were dead, but look at you. You're alive. I thought I had lost you forever, but here you are, found." I imagine this father embracing his son, restoring him, and holding nothing back. Nothing. Sometimes people wander so far away from God that they forget how precious they are. Sometimes people wander so far away from God that they can't see the preciousness of their lives. And so they take them, or sometimes they take the lives of others. But from the moment they try to return home, God runs to them. Runs and runs, screaming and crying and singing and dancing and loving beyond all love. all that matters is that the lost sheep, the child of God, is turning toward the one who made him or her. God waits for us like this. There is nothing you or I can do to earn God's love. In all of our life choices, God is with us, allowing us and letting go of us when we make mistakes, welcoming us when we turn aside from our distractions and temptations and obsessions and addictions, as Jim preached to us about last week, to return to God. One day, we release ourselves, or another releases us, from the prisons of diagnoses, mistakes, regrets, brokenness, self-criticisms, and much more that binds us. And it is then that God will come hurtling down the path, the river, the highway, the route to meet us, running at the speed of light to greet us with an earthly and a heavenly embrace. For we were lost, and we came home. Yes, my colleague said to Daniel's mother, of course we will bury your son, for God is finding him even now. God runs to him with tears of love and joy, and Daniel will find his way home. And yes, God is the host of the eternal feast that started from the moment of our birth and has no end. As you can see, there is a table set, and there is gracious plenty to go around. And we are all, every one of us, invited to eat, to drink, and to live. In the name of God, amen.